They say that nightmares are dreams perverted. I've told them here it wasn't a nightmare, but they don't believe me. They nod and make little notes in my file, and they watch me now, waiting for me to scar my breasts, to eat insects maybe, or to lift my dress like some crazy old woman and urinate on the floor. But there's so little time left. You've got to listen. Not far from here, there's a small town on the coast. They used to call it New Bethlehem, but they changed the name to Point Dune after the moon turned blood red. Point Dune doesn't look any different than 1,000 other neon stucco towns. But what happened there, what they did to me, what they're doing now, they're coming here. They're waiting at the edge of the city. They're peering around buildings at night. And they're waiting. They're waiting for you. And they'll take you one by one, and no one will hear you scream. No one will hear you scream!
Hi, this is Sam.
Becca.
Hi, and we are not at our house. We're at Bill and Mark's house, and we're getting ready to watch Messiah of Evil. This is our special tie-in with Drive-In Asylum, the new issue number 9. We'll have the link in the comments so you can get it. But it is all about this movie with interviews with several of the people involved. And I'm going to introduce my guests. Hi guests.
Hi. Hello.
Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Mark. And I'm Bill.
All right. So, Bill, tell us about Messiah of Evil. I know this is your favorite movie, probably. Would you say this is in your top movies ever?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't know how many movies there would be.
And so people are like, what are your top 10 movies? And
I
I'm
don't
like,
know if
well,
I could pick 10.
That's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But this is way up there with movies that I love. It was really hard to find for a long time. It's once you've seen all the big zombie movies like Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, you start looking for other things. Like if you're like really into zombies, like, oh, I love zombie movies. Did you ever see Messiah of Evil?
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard to find. For a long time, I think people traded it on bootleg VHS, and I'm not really sure if it ever got, I guess it got an official VHS release, but
under a different title, probably.
Yeah, it has many.
That's what I love, though, that like we're in this like golden era of like movies you never thought you'd get to see. Like suddenly get these Blu-ray releases that are like, like Kathy's Curse that we just watched. Like, who would spend this much time making this movie look this good? Versus like my big thrill is getting those 50 packs, and then like Frankenstein 80 ends up being on this. This is on one of the ones I have.
Yeah,
and it's like, and now with YouTube and stuff, it's like I saw Becca the other day. Like when I was young, I remember I used to read Starlog and Fangoria, and I wanted to see Dark Star, the John Carpenter movie, so bad. You know what I mean? But like in the 70s, like how would I have seen it? And it finally played on Superhost, and I remember hating it. I was like, well, this is totally not what was advertised. Laser Blast was the other, which is out on Blu-ray this week. Just came.
Oh yeah, I love Laser Blast.
And like I remember, I wanted to see Laser Blast so bad because it was in every Starlog. Because there weren't any other, like, what do you do after Star Wars? There wasn't a lot to talk about. Like Laser Blast, the gulf between Laser Blast and Star Wars, quality-wise, is pretty deep.
Laser Blast is kind of, it's one of those movies that they marketed it as a Star Wars type movie, but that part of the film is like what? Like 10 minutes?
Oh, the aliens in the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they look awesome. But like even on the poster, they make his hair look like Mark Hamill. He has like that laser gun and he's getting ready to fight aliens. I remember seeing all those pictures. I'm like, holy shit, like a human teenager against aliens. This movie's going to be awesome. And it's
that's not what that movie is.
No, it's more about shitty cops and them abusing a kid. It's kind of like Carrie as an alien.
The Messiah of Evil was very hard to find. And everybody talked about it because it was supposed to be really gory.
Uh-huh.
But once you saw it, you realized it's not gory at all. Like it's all suggested. There's nothing really terribly violent in it, but there are these 2 major attack scenes in it that everybody talks about.
Oh, the one at the end is awesome with the glass and everything. Like the windows where they're coming out. Like that seems awesome.
Well, that climax, that is too. But I was talking about the kill scenes. Anitra Ford's death scene in the supermarket, and then Joy Bang's death scene in the movie theater. Those are both exquisitely shot death scenes, and attack scenes, and everybody talked about them for a long time.
It feels like you haven't seen this yet,
No.
But it feels like a bigger idea movie than the other zombie movies of the time. Like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is another one, kind of sort of zombie movie from that era, and like
this is even less of a zombie movie.
Yeah, it's not
like it really is not a zombie movie.
She was asking me what it was about. This is my bad description of it. It's like some girl's father is an artist that went crazy, and he sends her letters to come to this town where something bad's going to happen. It's got like the cool thing I like about it is it seems to have like a really. I've been watching a lot of TV movies from the same era, from like 71 to 74. What year is it? 71 this came out?
73.
73. But
They
that era
shot it in 71, but it came out in 73.
It feels like in that era, movies had more of this real doomy menace to them.
Yeah.
Like 70s movies are always like that.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
Would you call this one of your guilty pleasures? Rather than a favorite movie?
Is this a movie where nothing happens?
I have no guilt about any of my pleasures.
You know what I mean?
There
A
are
movie
many
that
things
you
that
like
happen in this movie.
It's not.
Stuff happens in this
Tell
movie.
him about Ghost Story. And
What?
I said, this is the king of movies and nothing
I
happens.
told him the other day via text. I texted him after we watched. We watched that movie, Mark, A Ghost Story. Have you heard about that?
With
It has
Rooney
like
Mara.
Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara in it.
And he dies in a car
I didn't
wreck.
know what it was either.
And they were getting ready to move, and so she, wasn't expecting her husband to die, so he gets stuck in the house. He goes home, and the whole movie he has a sheet on his head.
Like literally like
eyeballs.
a ghost sheet.
And he just hangs out in the house, and he watches all these other families live there. It is the most boring movie I've ever
The description she gave of it, you're like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting.
in my life.
It is not.
I thought you were
there's
talking
no,
about...
for the longest time, there's no talking. It's silent.
Oh.
Like, it's one of those.
But
And
there's
I'm
a
like,
scene. There's a scene where he's watching the house, and the scene went on so long and nothing happened. It's just him in a sheet looking out the window, and it's just a locked off shot. It goes on for about 7 minutes.
Like, I went
with
to the
nothing
bathroom
happens, no
and came
movement,
back.
and she's like, "Is the DVD broken?" Because sometimes it just gets stuck and just repeats.
Yep.
That's how little stuff happens. Yeah, it literally is. I don't even think you
And
can
then the
handle
2
how little
seconds
happens
when
in
you
this
think
movie.
something's gonna happen, the part happens, and you're like, they could have done so much more with that, where he talks to the other ghost through the window.
Oh yeah.
He looks across the street, because there's no voices, and he sees a ghost, same dressed as him. It's like the Michael Myers ghost, like holes fried. And he sees another ghost, and he's got the sheet on, and he waves to him, and so they put subtitles up, because there's not even talking then.
But the ghosts just talk like, "Hey, what's up, dude? Hey, how you doing, buddy?"
And that's it! I was losing
Why are
my
you
mind.
doing? He's like, "I'm just sitting here. I don't know why I'm in this house anymore." Yeah, me either.
I mean,
Yeah.
fast forward all the way to the end. We got
Kesha's in it too. That's
Yeah, Kesha's in it. The singer.
Does she have a big role?
No, she plays like one of the tenants of the house. And
There's
she
like
has
a druggy party at their house.
And
Everybody's stoked.
that's where I made him start fast forwarding.
I have a good tolerance for art movies and long movies, and it turned me off. So that's saying something. Like I made it through some really bad movies. I wanted to like it. It's not.
Would you say Messiah of Evil is an art movie?
I think it has parts of it all. Like that's the thing I like about it. It really there's movies. I think the thing I like about it is like it aspires to be something more than just like a exploitation genre cash in kind of movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Like where it's like I'm trying to think of another movie that like Living Dead at Manchester Morgue is very similar. What's the other title for that?
Don't Open the Window.
Yeah, Don't Open the Window. Yeah, but that movie's the same way where it's like.
How do you go from something in the Manchester Morgue to Don't Open the
That's
Window?
okay. It doesn't even have the
This is
Manchester.
The
what I've
magic
never
of Hallmark
understood.
releasing.
Yeah, and also Manchester Morgue is
What
only
else
in the
is
movie.
this one called?
Messiah of Evil.
But does it have
It's
another name?
yeah, it's called Dead People. That's the poster I have upstairs.
Uh-huh.
Is Dead People.
That
And-
probably would have been my title. I'd have been like, well,
Well, it's like
about
All the
dead
Colors of
people.
the Dark was when it came out here. It wasn't marketed as a giallo. It was marketed as a zombie movie.
Right.
And there's no zombies in it. There's a satanic cult, and there's a scene where they chase her, but that hasn't. And that's
It's
how it
not
ends.
a zombie movie.
The American movie cuts off where the cult comes back and gets her,
Mm-hmm.
and like the hands come on the screen. That's where it stops. Like all the other stuff that solves the mystery, that's all cut out of the American cut, which doesn't make it. Then like it's like 12 minutes missing. There's no gore or anything. They're just like, yeah, nobody will. So in Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, the Manchester Morgue's in the movie for about 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, But that's a
doesn't
similar.
have a big part of it.
But that's a similar movie to me where it's like, I think the cool thing about that movie is it's as much about like the class struggle in England as it is about a zombie movie. It's another very doomy, dark, the world's going to end at any time kind of movie. Even if these zombies don't attack, the world's in pretty shitty shape anyway. You know what I mean?
The young people versus the cops and the environmental pollution in Liverpool, I think, is where it starts out.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur Kennedy's awesome in that movie as the inspector. Like, he has so many good lines in it. Like, especially after, well, like, it's
with your faggot clothes.
Your faggot hair and your faggot clothes. I bet you hate the cops, too. And he's like, you make it easy.
Yeah. It's a saucy response.
At the end, whenever he's like, I wish you could come back from the dead so I could shoot you 3 more times. And then he does. Like, it's such a great ending. But it's a downer. It's almost like a better version of the downer Night of the Living Dead ending. Where it's like, yeah, the hero comes back, gets killed, but he comes back as a zombie and takes out the villain. Spoiler, it's a 50-year-old movie. That's always been weird, like, when I write these reviews, I'm like, because when you do the IMDb thing, you know, like, if you put spoilers in your review, and I'm like...
I know,
if it's before 1985, I think I can just put spoilers in. I don't... And I always look, it's like 700 people have commented on, do you know what I mean, have reviewed Living Dead at Manchester Morgue. It's not like a movie that a lot of people have seen. And they have, but...
That was another tough one to find. Like, back in the 90s, you had to buy it on a bootleg VHS.
A lot of them were like, I remember when Incredibly Strange was open in Dormont, they had, a lot of their stuff was Japanese laser discs that were bootlegged. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they had El Topo and Holy Mountain.
Yeah.
And, like, probably this, too, like, where they just had these boots of them, and that's how you watch this stuff. I love that there's these movies that have been around 40 or 50 years, like Enter the Devil, Eerie Midnight Horror Show that we were talking about. Like, I never knew anything about that movie, and then when I watched it, I'm like, this movie's crazy. Like, how does nobody know about this movie? I guess, like you said, some people, like, it's in the... I always think of, like, the levels of how people get into movies. For some people, like, Dawn of the Dead's enough, very cool. And then there's people like, well, I need to see, like, the Fulci ones. And then there's people like us where it's like, oh, but what is out there beyond...
The obvious stuff that everybody finds. And some of it's great, you know, some of it isn't, in my opinion, but... The little obscure things they're starting to get really popular now because people are bored with the rest of it. Mm-hmm. They want to find these like old movies that fell through the cracks,
like Burial Ground.
That was a mainstream kind of thing. Like people didn't. It got a theatrical release
in the U.S.
in the United States. Yeah,
how did people react to the crazy subplot of that movie?
It just it played the Cheswick Quad
really
in my hometown. Yeah. I didn't see it.
So there's a little kid. So I think if I can describe this shortly. This professor is trying to figure out how to bring
Burial Ground.
Yeah, trying to bring people back from the dead. He invites all his best friends to come see him bring a person back from the dead, but he gets killed by zombies before he can show them. Mm-hmm. So all the people are gathered in this castle to meet him. They can't find him, and the zombies start to attack the castle. Mm-hmm. For some reason, this woman brings her boyfriend and her son. And she's having sex with her boyfriend. And there's a crazy scene where, for some reason, there's lingerie just left in the castle.
Well, you should mention that the son is supposed to be about 10, but the actor playing him is about 25.
What?
Oh, well, it gets worse. So, he's like, she comes in this, like, crazy, like, it's the worst-looking Teddy. You know what I mean? And she goes, look at this, I found it in one of the catacombs in the castle. And he goes, you look like a right whore. But that's okay, I love that. And so they start, like, awkwardly making out. And the son walks in and goes, Mommy! He's like, what are you doing, Mommy? And she's just standing there screaming, get out, get out!
May I ask what you're doing, you nut? Huh?
You mean you don't like it?
No, I didn't say that at all, did I? Where did you find that stuff, anyway?
Next door in a big trunk. I wonder how long it's been there. Pretty funny, huh?
In a way.
Maybe it was left here by some mistress that George's grandfather used to keep.
Who knows? Maybe the old boy used to like to wear it himself.
Didn't you like my little show?
He looked just like a little whore. But I like that look on
you. Throughout the film, he keeps, like, trying to make out with his mom.
Mama, I can't stand it anymore. Please let me stay close to you, Mama.
Oh, my poor darling. Can you forgive me for having brought you to this terrible place?
Of course, Mama. Oh, Mama. I love you so much. I need to feel you near me. I need to touch you. When I was a baby, you always used to hold me to your breast. I loved your breast so much, Mama.
Michael!
That's why they made him 25.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So at one point, like, a zombie attacks him. He escapes. And he's, like, all like, catatonic from the zombie attack. So she tries to comfort him. So he starts grabbing her boob and starts trying to, like, drink milk out of it. So she starts slapping him in the face, but, like, really weirdly slapping him in the face, right? Up until this point, this movie has been a totally normal zombie movie. Like, it's a total ripoff. It's a ripoff of Zombie, even with, like, the face going through the glass scene.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a Zombie is a ripoff of Dawn of the Dead. This is a carbon copy of Zombie. Except in that crazy decision, like, we should put incest in this movie, too. So anyway, he gets killed because she chases him away whenever he tries to make out with her. So she's all upset that she can't find her son for the rest of the movie. She finds him at the end of the movie. He's a zombie.
Mommy?
He's like, and she's like, your mother is so upset. I've been looking for you. And she goes, I have to make it up to you. And she, like, opens her blouse up. And he goes to, like, suck on her nipple, and he bites her entire breast off. And you're like, how did this get... Like, who thought this was a good idea?
But Mama.
Yes, darling, what is it?
Mother, this cloth smells of death.
But there's one part... Everything he says in the...
I want to just meet the woman who said, sign me up for that. That's the role I want.
Somebody did it, yeah.
She's
for, like,
in...
$20.
But that's the crazy thing about that movie. Like,
Fire.
I don't know why that scene's in it, but there's one other part whenever... Like, he's running from the zombies, and he gets, like, a cloth on his face. And he's like, Mommy, this cloth smells like death.
It's just lying on a table. Like, they go into this monastery, and he goes over to it. He's like, it's laying there, and he picks it up, and then he says that.
All the zombies look like the worst zombies you've ever seen. They have, like, fake heads. And then the end of it turns into a Blind Dead movie, like, with all the monks. The monks look just like the Blind Dead. It's like, we didn't rip off Zombie. We also ripped off all the Blind Dead movies. But
it's just crazy. It's one stupid situation after another.
The music's good in it, though. Like, it has weird, like, synthesizer, like,
My favorite part in Burial Ground is where there's the servant woman.
Yeah.
She goes to close the window, and a zombie throws a knife at her hand and pins it to the window.
Ooh.
And she can't get away.
Yeah.
And, like, they're right below the window trying to get her, and they put this scythe up there and, like, decapitate her with it.
Yeah, the zombies use weapons in this. Like, they're smart. They're smart enough to use tools. Yeah. But their heads literally are paper mache, like, out like a good foot.
Troll 2.
They look worse than Troll 2. So, it was a bang-up review of Burial Ground. People really want to see it after that. They do, actually. People love it.
It's very well loved. People, it's very highly regarded.
See, I didn't know that it played, but that's what's crazy is like Bill and I talking the other day. We were looking at all the Chiller Theater stuff. So many of these movies played like on Chiller Theater and played. You know what I mean?
Did they bleep stuff out?
Not always. Like
sometimes things got through.
Yeah.
Like that Death Smiles on a Murderer, that one Gallo with Klaus Kinski. It played like uncut on Chiller Theater. There's a lot in that movie that is like hard R.
Yeah, I remember seeing like really strong stuff on TV, like on WOR sometimes.
Oh, WOR always would, yeah. WOR was great though because they had the Godzilla Day on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and King Kong was Thanksgiving and Godzilla was Friday.
Yeah,
the day after.
I remember I would be. This is my emotional high and low as a kid. Like King Kong mania, crazy. You know what I mean? Son of Kong, depressed. Mighty Joe Young, back up. Because Son of Kong is the most downer movie.
Son of Kong is, but Mighty Joe Young has a happy ending.
That's why, like...
Slow him down.
The end of Son of Kong, when his hand is going beneath the water, is the most downer ending of a movie that I can think. I remember being just enraged as a kid at the end of it.
Yeah, I was very upset.
But then the next day, in my hometown there's always a Christmas parade. Every kid wanted to go to the Christmas parade. And I was like, fuck the Christmas parade. Godzilla's on. There's like 9 Godzilla movies on today. Like, why would I want to go watch a bunch of people in the cold walk around and play? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, Godzilla is on.
That's how I felt, too.
Yeah. It's like what a great time to be alive as a kid. Like, here's like from like 10 in the morning till 8 at night. Like, just all Godzilla. I probably can't tell you the plots of any of them. Because I think when you're a kid watching it, it's like long stretches of you playing with toys, waiting for monsters to fight.
Right, yeah, you weren't paying attention.
Did you ever watch any of those movies back then?
No.
You never watched?
You better start this soon, or else I'm gonna be the Messiah of sleep.
That's my new movie. I always text Bill whenever we start watching a movie, and I'm like, "Well, Becca's sleeping."
Always.
She always says the same thing to me.
I'm the person who used to stay up till like 3 and 4 in the morning. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I know.
She'll look at me and she'll roll over and she'll take her glasses off, and I'll say, "You're going to sleep." And she's like, "No, sometimes
I'm listening.
That's what Mark does.
She's like, "Sometimes I just like to listen to it."
I just like to listen.
I just like to. Wouldn't it be nice if we just listened to this movie? And then, like, literally, like, her eyes will close, and I'd be like, "Baby, you're sleeping." She'd be like, "No." And then, but you know what? Last night I did the same thing because she put Joy Luck Club on, and she may as well injected some kind of drug into my system because, like it was like
Asian women movies.
It was like Asian women
sleep.
having bad lives, and I was like, "Oh, that's such a bad film." And I just write out. It was. I should put that on when I'm nervous and can't sleep.
Just put on Joy Luck Club.
Just put on Joy Luck Club. And she's like, there were 3 of us were sisters. Like, right out. Yeah, it's not my kind of movie. I said to her, like, I don't want to watch people have problems. I want to watch people die. So speaking of people dying, we're going to watch Messiah of Evil. Anything else you'd like to add before we watch it?
Yeah, we briefly mentioned, I wanted to go over the alternate titles that it has. Messiah of Evil, it was salvaged from a production that ran out of money. So essentially, you're watching an almost incomplete film. Because Willard Hayek, I think is how you pronounce his last name, and Gloria Katz, who wrote Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and American Graffiti, they directed this movie.
Really?
And yeah, it was...
So this one isn't foreign, or is it?
No, it's American. The production ran out of money, and Mariana told me, talked to her, and she said, one day we just came to work, and they said, the set shut down, and they explained it to her. Somebody was supposed to be paying the bills, and we found all the bills stuffed in a drawer, and he hadn't been paying anybody. So the production just sort of like fell apart, and somebody else moved in and purchased the footage that they had shot, so they lost control of the film. And everybody was really upset about it because
Did she finish her part, or did they want her back for more?
No, there was supposed to be an ending. I mean, there is an ending to the film, but it's really vague. And it was supposed to be a little more detailed. And I'll explain after the movie's over. I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's mostly complete, but there was an ending sequence that was unshot.
I think what's awesome about this period of movies is, like, there was such a market for these post Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And, like, because, like, now, like, if you made a movie like this, if you're not on a streaming service or going to DVD, it's not going to get made. But back then, it was like, well, we'll just put it in drive-ins. And this movie,
that was where you saw them. Yeah.
And I'm sure this played for, 10 years in drive-ins.
Oh, it kept coming back. The alternate titles. It was filmed as... It was conceived as Blood Moon, and then it became known as The Second Coming. And that was the title that Anitra Ford went on, I think, The Tonight Show. And
she was on Price is Right, right?
Yeah, she was on The Price is Right. And she said to the host, "Oh, I'm in this new movie, and it's called The Second Coming." And it, brought the house down. But eventually, the title got changed to Messiah of Evil. And then after it ran as Messiah of Evil, another distributor bought it. And they issued it in 1978, right before Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead had played the Cannes Film Festival, but it was not released in the United States until 79.
Yeah.
And in 78, this distributor bought Messiah of Evil and put it out in theaters as Return of the Living Dead. Oh. And they used the tagline, "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." Oh. And the lettering was exactly like Night of the Living Dead. So they tried to pass it off as a sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Because people probably heard, there's going to be a sequel.
Right. Yeah.
In the same way, like Zombie Flesh Eaters, Zombie played England before Dawn of the Dead. It played 3 or 4 weeks before it.
Yeah.
It was more popular.
So yeah, it was one of those things where they tried to pass it off as a fake sequel, and Romero got an injunction against them. So they had to change the title. In some markets, it became Night of the Damned. Another one was called Revenge of the Screaming Dead. And then years after that, it got reissued again, I think 1981, as Dead People. 10
years after it was made, it came back out.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's amazing. Stuff movies don't last 2 weeks in the theater now. Versus Halloween played for how many years? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
and kept coming back.
There's no such thing anymore. There wouldn't be Could you imagine a movie that's released today coming out like 3 years from now with another title?
No, it would. People would be with the internet. People would be enraged by it. Today, like movies, you're never going to rediscover a movie 3 years after it's out.
It comes and it's gone.
Yeah, I mean there aren't many movies worth discovering today. That's my attitude. I said something to you about a movie that came out. You're like, that movie doesn't even exist to me. I don't care about any of these movies. I don't want to talk about these movies.
It's not in my world.
Yeah, that's
it was the one with Casey Affleck.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that movie's not in my world.
In my world, that movie doesn't exist.
Hey, creeps. Do you want to hear horrifying tales of vampires, zombies, werewolves, and more? Then pick up your phone and dial the premier horror hotline, 1-900-MONSTER. Talk directly to demons so scary you'll be dying for more. Under 18? We'll get your parents' permission before calling. $2 for the first minute, 45 cents each additional minute. 1-900-MONSTER. Dial in and freak out.
Are you a good kisser?
Yeah, I think I'm a good kisser. Oh, I think. From what I've heard, from what I've been told, the feedback I've gotten is you're a great kisser. You're a good kisser. You kiss good.
Call 1-900-909-3300 and hear it straight from Corey. $2 for the first minute, 45 cents for each additional minute. Call 1-900-909-3300.
Call me, 1-900-909-3300. It's very important. I have a lot to tell you guys. Please call me.
Is Elvis alive? Judge for yourself by calling the 900 number on your television screen. Hear what could be the incredible Elvis phone call. Listen to the newest and longest recording ever, just released from the original taped conversation purportedly of Elvis recorded about 4 years after the 16th of August, 1977. Call 1-900-909-ELVIS. Call now. Experience what may be the most shocking story of our time.
Bill and I are the only two that survived Messiah of Evil.
They're all sleeping.
You know, we talked about how like some movies look like maybe they're European, and they aren't. This movie really feels like a European movie more than an American movie, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. Mariana thought it was. She said that they were heavily influenced. And that's how she saw it anyway. She saw it as that kind of film, and that's how she acted. And you can tell she was influenced by that. But I think everybody else was too.
What is the difference between an art movie and a horror movie? It's just where they played, because Grindhouse has played a lot of art movies like I Am Curious Yellow that weren't, because of their salacious content. But
right.
But there's like such a fine line between what is, a John Waters movie is an art movie, but it's also an exploitation movie, and maybe parts of it is a horror movie too. It just depends on where you're watching it. You know what I mean? Like this is like
true.
Yeah. I think the funny thing is, like, I've been reading a lot about that era, like, like late 50s, early 60s film, and like the two things I'm struck by is like where like movies like Breathless and were influenced by American cinema, like us, like American junk cinema in a way, like Cashiers the Cinema talked about like Night of the Living Dead is like an important art movie, and then it influenced their French cinema, which then came back and influenced our cinema. And the other thing I'm always struck by is like what Italian directors are considered art and which ones are trash. Fellini is art, but like Bava worked as an assistant for Fellini.
But Bava's certainly seen. Did people look down on him because he did horror movies?
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to someone last year. It was at a Halloween party, and there was a kid from Italy there, and we were talking about horror movies, and he said that when he grew up like near Rome, and he said the only movies that played in theaters were popular movies. He said like horror movies never played in the theaters, and to see them, you would have to go out of town to like the Villages and these small theaters on the outskirts of town, and they were kind of disreputable theaters to see it. I know Bava was a lot more popular, more mainstream probably, definitely than Fulci and those guys by the era that this kid would have grown up in the late 80s, early 90s. It's weird because there's so many directors that sometimes talk about that they got stuck in this ghetto of making horror movies. I think Romero felt that way.
Oh, sure, yeah.
He did everything after Night to not make another Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
And then everything after Day remaking Night of the Living Dead over and over again. But it's like, that's like, I was just rereading through some stuff like Season of the Witch and, what do you call it?
Martin.
The other one is between Seasons.
Hungry
There's
Wild.
Always Vanilla, yeah. Yeah, like There's Always Vanilla is like tries to be like some 60s romance comedy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like Season of the Witch is closer to like, but then I think Martin's like the best distillation of everything that he was trying to do. And that's my favorite of his movies. Because it's again, it's pretty much an art movie. You know what I mean? Like if you took out the vampirism and stuff, it's still a study of like a town falling apart and what the
Sure, yeah.
end of the 70s. But then I like that you put the horror element on it. So it has nothing to do with this Ivy.
I like The Crazies.
Oh, I love that movie. Especially because it's in Evans City and I grew up right next to Evans City. But yeah, The Crazies is great. That's a really dark movie too. I think it's more downbeat than Dawn because like nobody walks out of it.
Right, yeah. Well, that's how Night ended too.
Well, it seems like almost all 70s movies end like that. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you're Donald Sutherland, like you're not going to make it out of the movie live. He's like the quintessential pre-1980 horror movie star. Also, he was like a sex symbol of that era, which is weird because he's very John Holmes looking.
Yeah, I don't see that at all.
What, him being
being a sex symbol.
But he was.
I know, but I can't relate to it.
Well, what's funny is like the 70s are such disparate sex symbols where Woody Allen was considered a sex symbol. So, but on the other hand, so was Telly Savalas. I guess you're opposite poles of the 70s.
That I agree with.
Telly Savalas.
Oh yeah.
And I think Oliver Reed was the other one I thought that would
Oliver Reed, yeah.
Is like totally up, like Burnt Offerings era Oliver Reed is pretty much.
Did you ever see Women in Love?
No.
Oh, there's like a scene in Women in Love where he and Alan Bates get totally naked and wrestle.
Oh yeah,
And it's
okay,
like,
I know about it. Yeah.
Totally like there's no attempt made to shadow anything. I mean, it's all right there.
Yeah, I really like Inside Evil. It's got some like interesting stuff. It feels like very otherworldly, like very like waking dream, like
Lovecraftian.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But it's like, why does she like? Okay, like when I was trying to explain to Becca like what the story's about, it's like, yeah, she comes to this town to find her dad, but like, there's a lot of other stuff and there's some guy that has 2 girlfriends, and he's just there because he's, I guess, an art collector or a collector of things,
collector of legend.
But it feels like he's going to be at one point like, well, he's the villain. No.
But he is. That's the unfilmed ending
of the
film. He's the Messiah of evil. He's the character that's come back after 100 years. He's the dark stranger.
That would be a better ending then.
You can kind of see that it's him. Like, after you know that...
Yeah, okay.
You can tell it's Michael Greer.
I like movies that end, though, with, like, the person has been driven so crazy that, like, well... Like, Friday the 13th one, that's how it ends. It's her just like... What about the boy?
Then he's still there.
It's so funny because I love that post Carrie, like every movie had to have that shock ending that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
And somebody wakes up screaming.
Someone wakes up screaming, or somehow Carrie comes through the grave. My favorite dumb one is the end of Pieces.
Pieces.
Where like, his balls just get shredded for no reason.
Bastard.
It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
It comes to life.
It comes to life, and you're like, isn't that the like hero of the movie getting his dick ripped off at the end of the spoiler warning for a movie that came out 40 years ago? I also love that Bluto from Popeye is one of the bad guys in that movie.
I know.
He's close to your type, maybe too
close.
Oh, he is.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah.
That's very much my type.
Yeah, he's like very chunky and brutish. Yeah.
Any representation of Bluto is hot.
It is Bluto. Was Bluto imprinted on you at a young age?
He's gonna be hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just looking up John Matuzak.
Uh-huh.
Do you know anything about him? He played for, I think, the Raiders in the 70s. I could be wrong about the team.
Mm-hmm.
But, he was Sloth in the Goonies. Lived, like, real fast and hard as a football player and did all sorts of damage to his body with speed. And so that's what the article was about.
I saw that was
drug
abuse.
abuse.
Yeah.
And he died young. But he did a Playgirl spread.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was like essential because I don't know who my dad's wife must have gotten Playgirl because I know I saw the Playgirl with.
I love that at one point women did buy Playgirl.
Oh yeah,
where it was like, yeah, sure, women buy this.
Right.
That was every guy's fantasy. Like, well, I'll be in Playgirl, and every girl can see me. I'm like, okay, cool.
You're like, girls really aren't looking.
No, like they can girls can pretty much see any dick they want to see.
The magazine was for men, really.
Yeah.
There was a significant portion of...
Well, do you remember, like, on PGH, after, like, 11, there would be ads for Playgirl and Penthouse, and...
Yeah.
And it was just, like, we were watching Zorro, the Gay Blade, really late one night. It was, like, the PGH late-night movie. And I remember every time the Penthouse ad came on, my mom would start talking and get in front of the screen, so I couldn't see it.
You can't stop that kind of
No,
thing.
and all the ads for Penthouse were...
Not with teenage boys.
I was young. I was probably like 9, but still, I was probably ready to...
Oh, yeah, that's old enough.
Yeah.
You know what's what.
And I actually remember the ads for Penthouse were just whoever the centerfold of that month was saying, this month in Penthouse. Would they tell you everything that was in it? It was like, and it was like, oh, okay. That's what I'm thinking about for Messiah Evil. Like, do you think, like, what were their goals of it? Was it to be... It's not a major release.
I think it was intended to be a major release. Well, it was their first film.
Yeah.
And it was more likely, your first film was more likely to be a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, and horror movies were profitable because...
After Night, yeah.
Sure. Well,
even before
there
the
was
AIP
whole,
movies and stuff.
There was this whole way to exhibit them in drive-ins and grindhouses,
yeah.
and it made money.
Yeah. And the money lasted. If you did the copyright right, unlike Night of the Living Dead, or you didn't sell your print to the mob like Chainsaw, and you handled stuff right, you could probably make your money back, or enough to make another movie.
Sure.
Because like even Lucas made THX 1138, which is just a pretty easy science fiction movie by comparison to what he did afterward. But yeah, that's the thing I always wonder is like how does this movie get lost versus this movie get celebrated and found? Like, if you think about it, Night of the Living Dead was a little Pittsburgh movie that played here, and it eventually made its way across the country. But like, if it had had its original title, like Night of the Living Dead is a great title. Do you know what I mean? The ad campaign for it's a great ad campaign. But
Yeah,
like,
it
there's
is.
other movies of that era that are as good, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, name something else that you think is equal to Night of the Living Dead.
Like Carnival of Souls is that good.
Yeah, Carnival of Souls came first, and Romero even said that inspired him to make Night of the Living Dead.
This movie feels a lot like Carnival of Souls.
Right, yeah, it's more Carnival of Souls than Night of the Living Dead.
Because there's especially the scenes where like where she's just wandering, and like how the main character just keeps her Harvey guy just keeps showing up behind
Yeah.
her. Like that scene in the movie theater reminded me a lot of Carnival. But like, why is Carnival of Souls a movie that's lost? If you would bring it up to someone, even if people don't watch horror movies, 9 out of 10 people know Night of the Living Dead. Maybe 10 out of 10 people. They may not have seen it, but they know what it is.
If you ask me, I would say it was because Night of the Living Dead had gore.
Yeah.
It was a lot more vicious
Mm-hmm.
than Carnival of Souls. And it's hard to imagine that there was a time before Night of the Living
Oh,
Dead
yeah.
where you weren't used to seeing zombies, and you weren't used to seeing people being eviscerated and
Even
their
the nudity.
innards being devoured by ghouls.
Even the nudity in that movie is just kind of like matter of fact. Like when the girl's dress comes
Yeah.
off, it's not exploitative, but it's just like, yeah, these are just dead bodies. Like
Their bodies, yeah.
But that's the thing I always say to Becca. It's like it's hard to watch these movies from the point of view of you didn't see what came before them.
Right.
Whereas it's like if you watch Night now, it's like compared to the craziness that we've watched after, like it's a great movie, but it's like very standard in comparison to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you had only seen like the movies we sat and watched at the drive-in, like those were the movies that Night kind of wiped out.
Right, yeah.
Like the teenager AIP movies and the stuff Hammer was doing at the same time, and Night feels so like 180 from each other. Do you know what I mean? Versus like the Hammer movies and even the Amicus ones are very well presented productions, and
that was very stylized. That
Yeah.
it was gothic, and
Yeah.
it looked like a story.
Yeah.
Or Night of the Living Dead didn't look like a story. It looked like a news program.
Well,
like you were seeing this happening for real.
And it feels like everybody in it, in contrast to like Messiah Evil, like all the main characters are really beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
all the women are very sexy. The guy's a great looking guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But in Night, you can argue that the main guy's attractive. You know what I mean? But like by and large, nobody is in that movie because they're good looking.
No, they just look like ordinary people.
Yeah. And like especially like the husband and wife are very ordinary looking.
Mhm.
The daughter's a normal kid.
Right now, we were saying earlier about rediscovering all the Lost films, and we are seeing things like Messiah of Evil now.
Mhm.
That, you know, they could have been as big as the other movies if they'd been seen.
I think that's what I'm looking for when I look for movies. Like, it's more interesting to me to watch something that nobody has talked about or has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always gonna watch Halloween or Night of the Living Dead, but it's like so many people have seen those and talked about them versus like there's this chance to find, I don't know, something that like it's not your discovery, but it's close. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm excited about reading the new issue of Driving Us Home. I'll put the link again so people can find it. But it's like nobody's talked to these actors about these movies.
It's hard to find anything about it. Well, you should definitely get the issue and read the interviews with Anitra Ford and Mariana Hill. They were really cool to talk to us. Mariana talked to me personally, and the interview with Anitra is something that Bradley Still Harding originally conducted for Fangoria.
Mm.
He wrote an article about Messiah of Evil for Fangoria, and but they only used a small portion of the interview from Anitra, and he said, "I'll just give you the whole thing, and you can run the whole thing."
Oh, that's awesome!
Want. So what you're reading in the issue is the unedited, you know, or the majority of the interview anyway.
Did you see the Entertainment Weekly article about Fangoria this week?
I did, yeah. I read it. I think that's what I read.
Yeah, it's sad that like there hasn't been an issue since like in 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah.
It's just, but magazines are unlike. But I was thinking, like, as a kid, like, that's the only way I found out about horror movies, or Starlog.
It was the only way to find out, and Famous Monsters.
Yeah. I didn't read Famous Monsters. I think Famous Monsters ended, what, 81?
No.
Oh, yeah, later, because E.T. had a cover.
They went for a long time, yeah.
I remember seeing the covers of it. I was more into, like, creepy and eerie for the Warren magazines. Do you know what I mean? Like, my parents would drop us off at, there was a place in Youngstown, because that's where they go shopping. And the first 24-hour grocery store there was called a Kroger Save-On.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an all-night Kroger. And in the 70s, like, kids didn't get kidnapped. Do you know what I mean? You just dropped your kid off in front of the magazines.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where they would put us. And I would sit on the floor, and all the comics were on the bottom shelf. And, like, but they'd be shopping for like an hour and a half.
So I would just sit there and read the magazine.
Yeah. And I remember by the time I got done with the comics, the Warren stuff was on top. But to go from, like, Superman to, like, Vampirella or like Creepy, the stories are really frightening if you're a little kid. And I remember there was an ad in them for you could get a pendant shaped like a coffin that had Dracula's
the soil from Dracula's castle. Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, if I touch this ad, Dracula's going to know that I'm looking for the grave or his grave dust, and he's going to come back and get me.
You were stoned.
No, I was 7. I wasn't stoned yet.
So you were stoned.
But seriously, at 7-year-old, there were times in kindergarten I don't know why, I got convinced that there was a monster in my class. So the first day I made every kid show me their hands because I wanted to explain to them how fingernails worked on the body. Like, I invented this elaborate excuse to talk about how that I was excited about how fingers worked because I was reading stuff about muscles. And my teacher was like, well, this kid's obviously, goofy. So yeah, I'll indulge him. Goofy. I was really trying to see if someone had a middle finger longer than their index finger. To see if they were vampires.
He's a vampire.
Yeah. And then
Sam.
And then I said the next day, after there was no vampire, I'm like, well, obviously, there's no vampire, there must be a werewolf. So I made every kid turn their palm over one at a time. The teacher came back in the room, and I had all these kids walking single file past me, showing me their palm.
Well, what reason did you give?
I said, well, that time I didn't have a reason. The teacher said, I figured at this point, I already got through the last one. And I was like, and I really liked this teacher. I had a crush on her. You know what I mean? She was like probably, a younger teacher. She was
Your
like,
kindergarten teacher.
Yeah. I was a rowdy kid. I was like 5 and ready to roll.
You had a crush on your kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember she came by and she told me, she's like, so why are you asking to see all the kids' palms? I'm like, well, between you and me, one of these kids has a pentagram on their palm. It is probably a werewolf. Imagine if one of those kids was a werewolf. Like, why would a 6-year-old werewolf be hanging out in a Catholic kindergarten? Of all places, that's a very Salem's Lot place to be.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I saw Salem's Lot on TV that night and saw do you know what I mean? Like the vampire kid.
The vampire stuff?
Yeah. Because I think if you saw that when you were 7, you'd be like,
that was scary.
What's scary is you never saw a kid as a vampire.
You didn't see kids as monsters.
Yeah.
It was rare.
In that movie, That movie skirts an R rating, much less a TV movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
It's very scary. It's still one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
There's someone on
Salem's Lot. Well, not only was there the horror stuff in it, but there's that whole scene where Collie breaks in on Bonnie and Larry Crockett in bed.
Oh, with a gun
and he holds a gun on them, and then he makes Larry Crockett put the gun in his mouth. It's really scary.
Well, it's really scary too because it's. I was so used to seeing what's his name from Fernwood Tonight.
Fred Willard, that's right.
And like he's like such a. As a kid, I'd only seen him in comedy. The other thing I remember as a kid is anytime horror movie trailers would come on, I would worry that if I paid too much attention to them, that like the monster from that commercial would come to get me.
It'll see you.
It would see me. So I would cover my ears and my hands and just scream like, ah, ah, like I couldn't hear it. The commercial for The Beast Within got me every time. How many times have you sat through this movie?
This time.
This time?
Mm-hmm.
It worked its magic on you and Becca.
I know.
Bill and Mark and Sleeping Becca, thank you for joining us for this discussion of Messiah of Evil.
One of my favorite films.
It is. I really enjoyed it. These guys, they enjoyed the benefits of it. Right, Becca?
Mm-hmm.